Did your mom teach you the golden rule growing up? I mean, I think that's what moms do as good moms, right? They teach you the golden rule of how to live. They pass it on to us. I don't know why I attribute that to moms and not dads. I just think moms doing it well. I mean, the golden rule, a version of it even comes up in the old movie Bambi. Thumper's mom instilling that behavior into them. And it's interesting today that people who aren't Christians, who've never gone to church, very secular people, will talk about how I try to live by the golden rule. And you know what? Since Adam and Eve, we have been living by the golden rule. Just maybe a very different golden rule. I mean, think about it. Right after Adam came Cain, and Cain said, I'll show my brother the golden rule. And he took his brother's life. Or then after that, the great-grandson of Adam, Molech, that, if Cain is avenged 7 times, then I will avenge 7 times 7. That's how we live. The golden rule we know all too well. The golden rule of the world is those with all the gold make all the rules. Right? If you have all the power, the status, the wealth, the strength, the best weapons, you get to make the rules. History tells the story over and over again. History tells the story of people who won the golden rule, right? And so we are so accustomed to this golden rule, we can hardly recognize that we live by it every day. We hardly even recognize another golden rule. Yet there is another golden rule. The rule that our moms tried to instill in us, to make different in our minds. And the only reason we know of this other golden rule is because of a poor, homeless rabbi wandering throughout the countryside. And this man, Jesus of Nazareth, of all places, happened to say, no, I know another rule to live by. Let's pray as we discover it together. God, we come before you this morning seeking to understand, first off, what it means to be loved by you, and second, how to love others the same way. We know all too well how often this world works. But today, open up our eyes so that our hearts may see a different way that you have to offer for us. Pour through me the gift of preaching, that Christ may be formed in hearts. It's in his name that I pray. Amen. So, 2 years ago this time, we studied Jesus' most famous teaching, the Sermon on the Mount. That's Matthew 5 through 7. If you want to go back and read that, you can anytime on your own, just not during the sermon, okay? You can listen to those recordings anywhere you find podcasts or on our YouTube channel. But today we look at what's like the Cliff Note version of the Sermon on the Mount, the summary of it, okay? It's really interesting to see what Luke leaves out of the Sermon on the Mount, or what Jesus does in this sermon, I should say, and also what Jesus cuts from the Sermon on the Mount. See, this is primarily a Gentile audience that Luke is writing to. And the Sermon on the Mount really talks about the ins and outs of Jewish law and how Jesus says we as Jews are to live, but not just Jews, all people going on from there. And Luke says, we don't need all that part of it, but there's some other important things going on here. And there are still some important Jewish references. If you remember, Sermon on the Mount is supposed to reenact Moses up on the mountain with God giving the commands, the law. Same imagery Mallory was reading for us earlier of the people up on the mountainside coming down with Jesus, where Jesus is going to proclaim his law, his kingdom, his values, how he lives, what he is going to live by, and he's going to teach that to them. except for it goes by a different name. Cool name. The Sermon on the Plain. Right? It's like the West Texas version of the Sermon on the Mount, right? We're not as too into that here. We're more like, the mountain, but it's the plain. The Sermon on the Plain is what this one is often referred to. And so Mallory did a wonderful job of confidently reading for us Luke's version of the Beatitudes. And I love Luke's version because there's 4 blessings and there's 4 woes, and they line up with each other. And I don't know about you, but on the surface, they feel like a punch in the gut to me. I mean, they take the air right out of my stomach. I feel like I am often on the wrong side of this. I often feel like I'm more on the side of the woes and less on the side of the Beatitudes. And I think this is a warning here of how do we align ourselves? How do we align ourselves with money and power? But the lesson goes even deeper. See, Jesus is teaching this lesson to what we might call the average Joes of life, the common folk, the peasants as they're referred to. These people are poorer than our poorest by American standards. I mean, these people have almost nothing, hardly enough to eat and survive, and they are out here in this region in Galilee thinking, where is God? Does God see us? Is God going to do anything about this, or are we just going to starve in this region? God's going to leave us and we are just going to go on with our poor, miserable lives and just not even eking out an existence, and then wiped out, gone forever because no one saw us. And so coming down from the mountain to the plain, Jesus is saying, no. God not only sees you, but God is here with you. Jesus in these blessings and woes is bringing about his great reversal. The reversal since the fall of man. Remember, Luke is about reversal. Jesus is contrasting the values of his kingdom and the values of the kingdoms of that day. And so it's helpful to understand that these people listening to the Sermon on the Plain weren't all too different than we are today. There were so many voices out there. Voices of people saying, no, really the way to be faithful is to live this way, or the good life is actually found in living that way. And so there were kind of some predominant camps of this. Some were saying, you know what, to really follow the teachings of God, we just need more rules. We can follow more rules, and if we could be really, really, really religious, then we're going to get it figured out. And then there were others that were like, you know what, this is not working at all. Let's start preparing for war. We're going to take our country back, right? And we still hear those voices today. And then still there were others that were like, we don't have a chance here. Let's just get on with the regimes of the Herods. Let's kiss up to them really well, and we'll get a little piece of the pie. We'll have a little piece of power. We still hear those voices today, right? And then there were others that were like, you know what? It's not working. I'm moving to the mountains. I'm just getting out of here. We can relate to that, right? I'm just going to go do my thing and live as a hermit of sorts. And instead, what Jesus proclaims to them turns the world upside down. Or in another sense, turns the world right side up, the way the world was intended to be. And so there is a comforting word here for us. The people Jesus is calling out are the people with absurd amounts of power and wealth. We think of them today as like billionaires and presidents and congressmen and those kind of things. And so I am guessing you've known in life someone who was very, very rich, and at the same time was also completely miserable. I'm guessing you've known people with power, and you know what? As it turns out, they could never have enough power. It just wasn't enough to them. Interestingly enough, I found this week and came across it. According to Moody's Analyst Chief Economist Mark Zandi, the top 10% of Americans here in our country make up 50% of the consumption. Let me say that again. 10% of the people in our country are buying 50% of the goods. And most of them is the top 3.3%. That's the golden rule. That's those with all the gold making all the rules. So here's the sharp edge of the blessing and the curse that we might be able to relate to today. In a very real sense, we can identify with these blessings and woes. When we are hungry, we remember one day we will truly be satisfied. When we weep and we grieve, we understand it will turn into laughter. When the price of food goes up, we long for the kingdom of God. And maybe the thing we fear the most, when people hate us because of our faith, we gain a reward. Why do we fear that one so much? You know, like the early church, it was like a badge of honor when they received persecution. We're like, we want to be like the early church. But persecution, no. Like, we've got a persecution complex, right? They're like, no, bring it on. We're receiving a reward. Here's the bottom line of Jesus' blessings and warnings. We work so hard in life to be well-fed, to be happy, and to be safe. And yet all those things that we work so tirelessly to achieve in an instant can be gone. The harsh truth of life is really the only blessings and woes come from God. God is really our source of security. These people sitting in front of Jesus, hearing these teachings, didn't have a choice. Every day they had to live in faith that God was going to provide for them to get them through the next day. They didn't have insurance. They didn't have savings account. They leaned on God to provide, and here God is giving them a blessing. Can we, in faith, do the same thing? Lean on God in such a way. Now that's the easy stuff. Here's the hard stuff. But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on the cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks of you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. And here's the kicker. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend from those who expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Now, I don't know about you when you hear that, but when I hear that, I think, I've got a long ways to go, right? I got to figure out this Jesus thing. Because I don't know about you, when I get a slap in the face, the last thing I'm thinking about is turning my other cheek. Like my kids, they're worried to wake me up at night because I like jump up in like full dad mode, and I shoved Silas across the room once and terrified him. It's like not my natural thinking to turn the other cheek. And if someone asks for my coat, it is cold and windy here, and I'm not thinking about giving up my shirt as well. Right? You guys like see me walking without my shirt on, you might think something weird of me, right? And that's part of the point. Life is not like a Disney movie where it's easily defined who are the good characters and who are the bad characters. In fact, oftentimes we find ourselves the bad characters, the ones who need the help. And so then out of all of this, we get a new rule, what we refer to as the golden rule of the kingdom of God. Do to others as they would have you do to them. And they are so hard of words, but they are and so simple, but yet are so difficult to live by. And then Jesus really goes on to build around this. I mean, isn't it easy to be friends with the people who get along well, who are nice, who are kind, who have common interests as you, who can do something for you, who can help you out in life? I mean, think about this challenge in your mind. Who is it that you really want to go talk to before and after church service? And I challenge you not to talk to them, but the people that you're like, oh, do I really want to talk to them? Right? To hang out with, but not just to hang out with, to love and to care for these people that most people might say, keep your distance from them. And then Jesus starts to get into lending here. And, the bankers in town might disagree with Jesus' way of running a business, right? Like, I'm guessing you want something as collateral, right, if you're going to give a loan, Steve. Right? You're like, hey, if you're going to get a car loan, I need to have that car as collateral. No, don't ask for recourse. Like, what's going on here? We're going to go bankrupt, Jesus. And then I realized there's a name for people who we give them money, we lend to them, we give them stuff, and we never get anything back from them. We call them our children. Am I wrong? Right? Okay, maybe I touched a sore spot there, right? We call them our children. And yet, one of my core memories in childhood, I think I was around Silas's age, like 3rd grade, is my dad coming home so angry. Let me tell you what happened. He got a professional grade sprayer to paint our house with. He had painted our house with it. It was great. He was before and after church telling us buddies about this spray. Like, oh man, this is great. I got this great sprayer. I painted our house, saved a ton of money. Now I got this thing. And I don't even know who the person was. And they were like, well, can I borrow that and paint my house? My dad's like, yeah, sure, take it. The guy painted his house. My dad was angry. He came back. The guy didn't clean it. All the paint was dried in there. It broke it destroyed it never worked. And I remember my dad being so angry. And then over time, forgiving and lending and still going to church and still participating and loving through this very painful, expensive experience that now makes a really good sermon illustration. And yet, in all this hard teaching, there's a high note in here. Enjoy these words from Jesus. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. He also told them this parable. Can the blind lead the blind? Will they not both fall into a pit? The student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? As for everyone who comes to me and hears these words of mine and puts them into practice, I will show you what you are like. They are like a man who building a house, who dug down deep and laid the foundation on a rock. When the flood came, the torrent struck that house, but could not shake it because it was well built. But the one who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a man who built his house on the ground without a foundation. The moment the torrent struck the house, it collapsed and its destruction was complete. Now, I need to tell you something here that maybe you've never heard before and maybe is really hard to understand. But one of the genres in biblical literature is comedy. The Bible's funny, okay? Even Jesus is funny. There's a biblical truth to write down and take home with you today. Jesus is using biblical humor here to make his point. And you guys are all looking at me like I'm Nate Not Funny Bergatsky, right? That's right, I said it. That guy is not funny. My family has forced me to listen to all of his stuff, and I've never laughed at one of his jokes. And someone accused me. They said, "Oh, you just don't like clean humor." And I go, "No, I can tell you right now, I know 100 ministers that are more funny than Nate Not Funny Bergatsky. Literally making me roll on the ground. I am laughing so hard." And this guy, you guys read Jesus and you respond like I do to Nate Bargatze. See, Jesus is using hyperbole. These are ridiculous, 4 hilarious metaphors. I imagine when Jesus is teaching this, he's not like, "And by the way," you know, I think he's smiling at him. I think he's laughing at him. I think they're like, "These are outrageous metaphors. What is going on here?" First, the blind leading the blind. Think about how we try to illustrate this. We have a fun time blindfolding people, and we spin them around in circles on a baseball bat, and then we try to get them to run in a straight line, and they fall all over the place, right? Well, what's going on in Jesus' day? Everyone's like, "Well, I'm going to be like a Pharisee or a Sadducee," right? And Jesus is like, "They're still just blind. They're human. Follow God, not them." Right? Or what do we like to do at birthday parties with kids? Piñatas, right? We blindfold them, we spin them around, we give them the bat, and then there's 2 types of parents out there. There's one type with the static rope that lets them swing away, and then there's the particularly brutal ones that pull that rope up and down while they're trying to swing, and they're just like, and we have just such a time with that. I even heard, like, on television this week, someone make this reference, the blind leading the blind, quoting Jesus' words thousands of years later. And so when we follow men and not God, it's just the blind leading the blind. We are called to follow Jesus. The second image is of a plank in the eye. I mean, it's hilarious. Imagine someone with a 2x4 sticking out of their eye, and they're like, "Oh, let me help you, buddy. You got a little sawdust in there?" It wouldn't make any sense, right? But Jesus is using this absurd metaphor to draw a point to a psychological term called projection. Projection is when we know there is something so deep and broken inside of us, but the way we hide it is by avoiding the problems, by telling someone else that they have tiny little problems in their life that they need to fix. And isn't that the easiest way to go through life? The easiest way to go through life is through our eyes, because our eyes are facing everyone else. We're never often looking back in ourselves. We might look in the mirror a little bit every day, but that can be depressing at times. But the ultimate mirror in life is this. So we read this, but I don't think we just read it. We're not just scholars studying this. We sit with it. And we let the mirror reflect back, and we let this reflect back where we need to change so we aren't simply reflecting our shortcomings to everyone else. The third image is of harvesting fruit. Now, I don't know about you, but everyone on Aubrey's family's farm hates picking the berries because they bite back, right? Those things are painful. And maybe you've had some cucumbers or some squash or zucchini that aren't too pleasant to pick either. And we tend not to want to pick fruit from those kinds of trees, and it can be the same way in life. The image is, what do we store up in our heart? And I don't know about you. When I am storing up good things in my heart, it is easy for good things to come out. But when I store up bad things in my heart, then bad things just pop out. Where did that come from? I love the Native American chief's story of this. He says that each man is born with two wolves. One wolf is a good wolf and one wolf is a bad wolf. And the young boy he's teaching asks which wolf wins, and he responds back, the one you feed. And man, I think that's how it goes in life. What are you going to feed, and what comes out will change your life. And for the final image, Israel was notorious in that time for not building on foundations. Okay, houses were often collapsing. We got a home builder, a foundation builder in church with us today. He could teach this lesson better than me. But you need a proper foundation for your house to stand on. The absurd metaphor is, what do kids like to do? Build something out of Legos or Lincoln Logs or whatever. You build it so you can knock it down. That's no foundation. We'd have to have our foundation. And so the crazy thing is, Jesus is like, I am giving you this life-saving advice. And the foolish thing to do would not be to listen to it. And so let me get to the gold in this rule. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that the world that we're living in today, right now, is still a very violent and polarized place. And we will always be tempted. Every time we turn on the news to see the violence and the disruption, we will always be tempted to live by the world's version of the golden rule. But Jesus is trying to explain for us what it looks like to live under his Father's rules. So Jesus in this sermon is explaining how Jesus is going to live his life, but he's talking about how God is treating you and me. Let me read this rule again, and you will hear what we miss. Think of this rule in terms of God and how God treats you, and see if this doesn't blow your mind. But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on the cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your cloak, do not withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks of you. And if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who send them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies. Do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful as your Father in heaven is merciful. I don't know about you. Have you ever lived as the enemy of God? Have you ever smacked God, made God turn the other cheek? Have you ever taken more than just a coat from God? Have you ever not loved God and yet God loved you back? Have you ever taken without giving? Consider Jesus. Did Jesus in his life not do these very words? Did he not give his very clothes, even his very life for you on the cross? Turns out we do give greatly to children. God gives so greatly to us. So greatly and so freely he has given us so more than we could ever lend or extend or never be paid back. Jesus is only asking us here to extend the same mercy he extended to us. To just extend that same mercy to others. See, Jesus isn't as much giving us a new rule book as he is giving us a new heart. A new heart and a new way to live life. So let me give you this fresh vision this morning. One of the things, if I can be frank, that I find the most exhausting about my job is having to explain things like denominational differences or hearing all the fights over worship preferences, or if the sermon is too engaging or too boring and what's going on there. And the thing that I long for, the vision that I have, is what if we were just a people gathered together every week focused on living these words of Jesus? I mean, consider if everyone in society lived these words of Jesus. There wouldn't be any violence, there wouldn't be any revenge, there wouldn't be any divisions or clashes. Property and possessions wouldn't be nearly as important as making sure your neighbor was all right. I mean, imagine if even just a few of us, just our little church, took this very seriously and lived like this. Like, wouldn't life be exuberant, astounding, astonishing, and uniquely different? I can't help but this kind of life people would be so attracted to. I mean, I'm hoping I'm driving through town one day and I see Jim walking through town with his shirt off. And he said, and I just say to myself, well, someone asked for his coat again. Right? Then I see Steve with bruises on either cheek, and I say, you were turning the cheek again, weren't you, buddy? I mean, what if we came together with stories that things we had let people borrow and we never received them back? The Golden Rule has uniquely changed the fabric of the world. And for thousands of years, people have been drawn to these words. That this is the gold in the rules. This is something to live by, to devote ourselves to care for. Generation from generation of one set of Christians passed on to the next, faithfully trying their best as brothers and sisters in Christ to live out these words in their context. And I can't help but think this way of living is just as much needed as it's always been. This is the gold in the Golden Rule. Pray with me as we close. God, forgive us. Forgive us when we forget our debts and we realize how much we have been forgiven of. How much mercy you've extended to us, and what the great inheritance we have of being your children. So God, may we love others in the same way that you have loved us, the way Jesus lived his life, going out being your hands and feet. It's in Jesus' name I pray.